Our theme tonight is cheeses and cider of Normandy. So for those of you out there who were like, cider, you mean like apple juice? It's sort of, except that cider is like the champagne of apple juice, if you want to think of it that way. And we're going to get into how cider is made. Why is it so fabulous? Why is it from Normandy? What makes it so special? We're going to get into all of that during our class today. First, I want to let you all know, those of you that have done our classes before, this is our first online class after about a year and a half of doing the online classes, where my beloved husband, Jeff, is not with us here tonight. He is traveling today. And so instead, my amazing, wonderful, beautiful, charming, fabulous daughter, Liberty, is joining us this evening. And she is going to be operating the dashboard for us. Now, Libby has sat in on countless of our classes before. She knows the drill, but take it easy on her. You know, like if you don't get your question answered right away, you know, pop it back up there again, and she'll make sure to pass it along to me. The chat is the way that we will interact with one another. So you put your questions, your comments right in there, and Libby will pass those along to me, and we will get to as many of those as is possible to get to. We may not get to them all because I expect there to be lots of questions, but there's also lots to cover today. So if you have questions we don't get to, drop me an email, jill@cheesetique.com, and I'm happy to always answer your questions in email.
Katie said, what type of wine glass is best for cider?
Excellent. Katie, I love you for just kicking it off with questions. So let's talk about glasses for cider. So we'll get into the history of cider, and typically, you know, historically, the country people who created cider and who would have enjoyed cider would have enjoyed their cider from ceramic vessels. We are going to be using a white wine glass tonight. If you happen to have a terracotta vessel at home, feel free to whip that sucker out and enjoy your cider from the authentic ceramic vessel. Otherwise, you can do, honestly, you can do most anything. This will, the wine glass will allow the aromatics to come out a little bit more than, for instance, like a pint glass or just a water glass or something like that. So if you don't have, again, a ceramic vessel, jump on in with your wine glass like I am going to do.
So let's go ahead and get started talking a little bit about our cider. I know I could use some at this point. So cider is the alcoholic beverage of Normandy. Normandy is pretty far up north. Liberty, if you want to share the screen and show everyone the map of Normandy.
I can do that.
Thank you. You'll be able to see how far north Normandy is.
Bam.
Is it up there?
I think so.
Okay. So you'll see the map of Normandy. You see England up to the north there. That body of water that looks like a very wide river is the English Channel. And so it's pretty cold up there and pretty sort of windy and inhospitable to growing a lot of grapes in the Normandy region. You can go ahead and close the map for now, honey. We'll come back to that.
Right.
So instead, the historical fruit to be grown in the Normandy region of France is in fact the cider apple. And the cider sort of industry, I suppose, goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. In fact, the cider that we're going to be enjoying tonight by Eric Bordell is made from apple trees that were planted in the 1700s. So they've been around since before the French Revolution, which is pretty remarkable. Something to know about cider apples is these are very special types of apples. These are not your typical Gala, Fuji, Honeycrisp kind of apples. They tend to be small and very, very hard and very bitter and acidic. So they're not what we would call eating apples. If you bit into a cider apple, you would find it to be pretty unpalatable, pretty sour and pretty bitter. But when you crush them down, let them lose their juice and let that juice ferment with all of those wonderful sugars, you end up with an incredibly delicious, bubbly, naturally bubbly beverage called cider, or hard cider sometimes to indicate that it has alcohol. Now, cider does not typically have a whole lot of alcohol. These styles of ciders will be anywhere from about 3% to about 6%. The one that we are having tonight is on the upper end of that. It's about 6% alcohol. Ooh. So it's like a very, very light alcohol wine equivalent. So something like, you know, a Riesling that's a little bit off dry would have something like maybe 9%. So it's a decent amount less than that. It's much closer in alcohol content to a beer than it is to a wine. So it is bubbly, as I mentioned earlier. So once we take that little cage off, if you've all removed the cage from your cider, it's going to have a cork in it that's very reminiscent of a champagne cork. So you're just going to hold it by the neck, pop it right out like that. It should not take much force. That being said, once you remove that cage, don't like go off, you know, tap dancing somewhere. You want to make sure that you are removing that cork as quickly as possible so that you do not end up with a explosion that you did not anticipate. So we're going to go ahead and pour our cider. Mine has some nice condensation on it. Now, typically cider, you want to chill it, but you don't want it to be served necessarily ice cold. You want it to be more what they would consider to be kind of cellar temperature. So, you know, like more like in the 60s and not in the 30s or 40s. So again, you don't want it to be ice cold. You want a lot of those aromatics to pop out of there. Oh, and do we not have some wonderful aromatics? Tickles the nose, definitely smells like apples, right? But it doesn't smell cloying or super sweet. Now this one is a very slightly off dry cider. There are ciders that are completely bone dry. And then there are some that are sweet. And this one is definitely more toward the dry side, but still a little bit off dry. So it's gonna have just a little bit of residual sugar, and it's gonna help to balance out the wonderful acidity and frankly, a little bit of the sort of trademark bitterness of Normandy cider. Go ahead and take a sip of this. Oh, that's just delightful. Oh, it's so frothy. It's so delicious. And what you're gonna find, oh, my mouth is watering, hold on. Ah, so good. So what you're gonna find is that the bubbly, the acidity of this is really going to help to cleanse the palate with all of these cheeses. So just like I always recommend sparkling wine, will go with pretty much any cheese on earth. The reason for that is because it has the bubbles, of course, that help to cleanse the palate, and it has high acidity. So it helps to really brighten the flavors, highlight those flavors, all that good stuff. So the cider is absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and have another sip. Are there any questions so far, Libby?
Yes, we've got one that is, I'm not sure if it's like a really like question, like, I don't know, but
Okay.
it says, can we get it in a keg? Don't know what a keg is.
Yes,
but
yes. So cider can come in kegs. Typically your Normandy ciders are not coming in kegs. They tend to be smaller bottles, just like you will see here. There are hard ciders that are made in the United States that do come in kegs, but it's not typically the case with Normandy. They tend to be smaller production and not something that you'd find in a keg. I'm not actually aware of any French cider that comes in a keg. I could totally be wrong, but I've never seen that.
Also, we have a question from Cheryl. When
Yes,
do you
Cheryl.
take it out of the refrigerator?
Yes. So the rule of thumb for drinking something like this, or honestly, even for drinking white wine, is you want to take it out of the very cold refrigerator about 20 minutes before you plan on drinking it. And similarly, when you're enjoying a red wine, we often, especially here in America, we will tend to drink our red wines too warm. We will drink them at room temperature. But really what you want to do is drink them at in slightly cool, very slightly. So you want to put your red wine into the refrigerator about 20 minutes before you're going to drink it, just to take the chill down just a little bit. And you want to take your white wines out of the refrigerator about 20 minutes before you're going to drink them. And that just helps the flavors open up and become more aromatic and full and round. If a wine is ice cold, it will be very closed and not very aromatic or flavorful. And likewise, if a red wine is too warm, you'll tend to taste more of the alcohol than you will of the wine itself. Okay.
Seems like everyone is enjoying the cider. I've got a question.
Yes, please.
So wine glasses, they're usually like taller at the bottom, right?
Mhm.
Is there a specific reason that they are more of a volcano-y shape?
Like tapered like this?
No, the wine glass.
Yeah, but like tapered where it comes up the sides like this? You mean?
Yes.
Yes. So when we have wine glasses, we typically have a larger bowl at the bottom, sort of the vessel to hold the wine. And the more narrow, the tapering style of the glass allows the aromatics to travel up through this narrowing passageway to the schnoz. So it enables us to get all of those wonderful aromatics channeling toward our nose, so that when we're sipping the wine or the cider, we're getting all those aromatics that we can enjoy as well. If it were a wider top, the aromatics would kind of pop out the sides.
I was talking about the wine, the cider bottle.
Oh, you're talking about the cider bottle?
Yeah.
No, it's just traditionally how sparkling wines are made.
Okay.
It's just in this very thick glass to hold in the high pressure of the gas that's trapped inside. And then of course a narrow neck for easier pouring.
Yeah, everyone seems to enjoy the cider, even the people who are saying they don't like cider very much to enjoy it.
That's
so.
fantastic. Well, I'm hoping it's a bit of an eye opener and a bit of a treat for people. and a bit of a, you know, it's one of those things that you can have for every day. It's very thirst quenching. It's a wonderful thing to drink larger quantities of. I don't know how else to put it, because it's only 6% alcohol. So you can really sit and drink a decent amount of this and really get it through a meal and not feel like you're going to be kind of under the table at the end of drinking all of that. So before we start tasting a cheese, can I do a couple quick shout outs? Because I feel like my technical adventure in the beginning made me not be able to do my shout outs.
Oh, yeah.
Can we start? Okay. I have a few birthdays actually today. So I want to wish happy birthday to Nicole out there from Paul, who says you may enjoy your birthday being celebrated later this month with a cheesecake. That sounds like my kind of birthday celebration. So happy birthday, Nicole from Paul. Also, happy birthday tomorrow to Christine from John. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And I hope you have a most festive birthday tomorrow. And finally, happy birthday to Michael in Warwick, New York from Tova. I hope you have a most sensational birthday, and thank you for celebrating it with us, eating cheese and drinking cider. Very, very cool. And then last but not least, shout out to Joelle. And so Joelle is one of our most frequent class attendees and a very loyal supporter of Cheesetique, she and her husband, James. And she had to take a bit of a hiatus from our classes for a while. And this is her first class back with us after a few months. And we are so honored to have you back on this particular night with us. And thank you for being here, and many, many healthy and happy returns to you and your family.
Alrighty. We've got,
yes.
It is apparently from, I lost it. Oh, found it. Bob and Guy.
Hey, Bob and Guy.
Bob's the birthday boy.
Bob, happy birthday. I didn't even know you guys were on here. Oh, no, I did. I mailed you your package. It always throws me off because it's Robert. And then he says Bob and Guy, and it always throws me off. Happy, happy birthday. I'm so happy to have you two with us tonight. Mwah. Very, very wonderful.
All right.
Okay, so let's move on and taste some cheese, shall we?
One more shout out.
Sure.
It is, or actually two more.
Okay.
So there it is, Iana DeBeth. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Okay.
But they are celebrating their 11th anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you. 11 years. That's a long time. You're not even having fun anymore after that
and
long.
then the other one is All Veterans.
Yes. So I was going to save that for the end, but I'll go ahead and say it now. Don't be silly. Oh my gosh, don't be silly. Okay. Of course, today is Veterans Day. It just so happened to have fallen on one of our regular cheese class days. And it is not lost on me or my family how very, very much we owe all of those veterans out there, whether you are currently enlisted, whether you are currently serving, whether you previously served, whether your parents served. It's a great honor to have you with us tonight. And I would say happy Veterans Day, but I would more, I don't know if you say happy Veterans Day, but just thank you. Thank you to all of the veterans out there for helping us preserve our freedom. Very, very appreciative on behalf of myself and my family. So shall we proceed and eat some cheese? All right, let's do it. So our first cheese is a cheese. And if anyone else's has gotten to the point where it is like slippery butter on your plate, then yay, because that means it's like the best cheese ever. This is a cheese called Briat Savarin. And I'm going to pull this one out here. I took home pieces of all of the cheeses tonight because I wanted you to see how beautiful these packages are and how just how much care is taken in the preparation and the packaging of these cheeses. So this is an intact Briat Savarin, and this is how we receive it. We receive it packed just like this, but in a box with several of them. And this is a very special sort of disposable, I suppose, cheese dome. And if you look closely at it, Lib, am I holding this up okay that you can see the little holes in the top?
Hold it a little bit
more like that, maybe. So if you see, it has little holes all along the top here as a way to keep the cheese aerated. And the point of them doing this particular structure is so this cheese will continue to age on its journey from Normandy to wherever it happens to go. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off my little cheese dome here and show you what the inside looks like when you expose this gorgeous velvety cheese. So Briat Savarin is one of the most pillowy, velvety. I mean, you literally will leave like little footprints in the top of this cheese as you touch it. It's so poofy and velvety. And this rind on the outside, as is the case with all of these cheeses tonight, is what we call a soft ripened cheese or a bloomy rind, which means the exterior of this cheese is completely covered in a living mold colony. And you may look at this and be like, oh, it doesn't really look like mold. It's so pure white and lovely and velvety and sweet and poofy. And it is, and it's mold. So enjoy. These rinds are all edible. Make sure that you eat the rind. Make sure you eat the rind. It's absolutely essential to having sort of adding this very cool flavor and very cool texture to your cheese. So again, this is what an intact Briat Savarin looks like. I'm going to rest that little puppy right over there on top of my other cheeses. And we're going to go ahead and take a taste of this. Now, the cool thing about Briat Savarin, it has been around since the 1800s and, or since I think maybe the early 1900s, I'm sorry, but was named after a famous French food writer from the 1800s named Briat Savarin. So it is sort of an homage to great culinary folks out there. And this cheese is just so heavenly. This is what we call, in addition to a soft ripened cheese, this is what we call a triple cream cheese, which means additional cream is added to the milk to amplify the butter fat, to raise the butter fat in this cheese. So whereas some of these cheeses would be considered double cream, that they might be in the 40s or up to 60%, a triple cream cow's milk, or sorry, triple cream soft ripened cheese has to be in the mid 70% butter fat. And so to give you a sort of sense of comparison, American style butter is about 80% butter fat. So this cheese is really more akin to butter than it is to typical cheeses that you might enjoy. Liberty, would you like a piece of this, honey? Are you able to take a bite? So again, this is Briat Savarin, one of the most beloved, I know, right? It's like cheese butter, cheese icing. And it's just so great on your baguette. And I put this in your little reminder, but just if you haven't already, you can actually pop your little baguettes into the oven for about 5 minutes at 350, and they'll get nice and crusty and delicious. I'm gonna take a bite of this. What questions do we have, Liberty?
Alrighty. Everyone likes it. Dave Rebecca poured his onto the plate. And then just Bobby tonight.
Just Bobby?
Yeah. Got a substitute cheese for the Briat. He is asking, like, are they pretty similar? And like, can you give him a little bit of history on that?
What did he get instead?
I don't know. What did you get instead, Bobby?
Well, chime in, Bobby. Let us know what cheese you got instead. I assume that they gave you some sort of triple cream, which would be equivalent to this cheese, but I'm surprised that you had to get a substitute, and I'm wondering why that is. I will have to investigate. Very curious. I'm on it, but let me know if you want to chime in to Libby with the chat and let her know what it was. So, again, Briat Savarin, super, super delicious, triple cream, lots and lots of fat. Again, make sure that you're eating the rind on this cheese. So it's going to provide an interesting texture, especially with this super silky icing-like interior. Having that little bit of chew from the rind really, really adds a lot of interesting flavor to that cheese. Can't go wrong.
Alrighty, we've got a couple more comments and questions.
Sure.
Lori is noticing that all the cheeses are cow milk. Is she wondering, are there many sheep or goat cheeses from Normandy?
No, there are not. So every cheese that I am aware of that is from Normandy is cow's milk. And the reason for that is there's lots of beautiful rolling pastures up in Normandy. It's a huge cow area and huge apple area. Agriculture is their big thing up in Normandy. And so they're just famous for their ancient cow's milk cheeses and for their ciders. So it's not that goats and sheep could not live there quite happily, but their most famous cheeses and all the ones that I am aware of are all made from cow's milk. And it's just a tradition, a local tradition of the cheeses that are made there. But that's a very good question. It's not a coincidence. They just all actually are cow.
Nice.
Any other questions for now? Would you like to taste the cheese, Tesla? Yes? Okay. We've got our 6-year-old here as well, and she would like to have some of the cheese. So let me get you a little bite, honey. And you want to zip around this side over here so you don't trip on anything? I'll give you a nice little crusty piece of bread here. And you can have some of the Briat Savarin. Got it?
Okay. Katie Clister, she says she wraps her brie in phyllo dough with other goodies on top.
Yes, absolutely.
She said, is this brie too good for that? Oh, too good for that.
Is it too good? So a lot of people have that question, like, it's really good, right? So a lot of people have questions about cooking with cheeses and like, is there a point where, oh, it's too fancy of a cheese to cook with it? For the most part, when you do cook a cheese, just like when you cook most things, you are going to be altering the texture significantly, obviously, and you're going to be applying enough heat to it that you will dull the flavors of cheeses as you cook with them. It's similar to things like truffles. When you're serving truffles with your dishes, you always want to, shave those on at the end. You don't want to expose them to a lot of heat because they will lose their aromatics and they will lose their flavor. Cheeses are the same way. So it's not necessarily that a cheese is too good to be cooked with, but if it's going to be losing, a significant amount of its flavor, and if its texture is going to be altered by the heat, the qualities that you might seek out in a very sort of upscale, nuanced cheese might be wasted in a sense on cooking something. So in the case of doing a baked brie, you can absolutely do an awesome camembert. They're not even that expensive, but you could do a camembert that would really keep its flavor really nicely. But would you want to do, for instance, the Briat Savarin would just liquefy. So right away, I would say you would not want to use this cheese to do that, because when you heated it, it would just turn to liquid and leak out everywhere. It would not hold up. The texture would not hold up enough to be exposed to the heat. You want something that has a little bit more lovely sort of cohesive texture to it when you're going to be heating it like that. So think of it less as like, oh, don't use the fancy stuff to cook, but kind of just keep that in mind, that a lot of what you pay a lot of extra money for is sort of delicate flavors, nuance, depth, finish, unique texture that the cheesemaker intentionally created there. So then if you're going to be cooking it, you are going to be diminishing some of those things. So just, from a budgetary standpoint, also, you may just say, let me pick something that's a little bit more economical for doing that.
Two more things. One,
Sure.
the chocolate is for your taste buds' pleasure.
Yes.
So,
yes. The chocolate is just a little thank you, a little something we toss in, and it will go beautifully with all of these cheeses. So as will the wonderful apple compote that Chef Natasha created for us. It's really, really delicious. We were working the whole Normandy apple theme, and mix this with any of your cheeses and it will be just delightful.
Also, Ilana Jackal asked, how many days will the cider last after being opened?
So you would want to, you may have one of those little metal things. I think I've got one in here. Yes. So you may have one of these little, bubbly wine savers. And if you put this on, I'll be honest, it'll keep for several days. I wouldn't go beyond maybe about 4 days or so. After that, it really will start to flatten and won't be as vibrant in flavor also. But if you have one of those that holds the bubbles in, that's really, really key, because you will not be able to reinsert this cork. So this is, again, very much like one of those traditional champagne corks. It's almost like a mushroom. And when you take it out, because it's under so much pressure, it's really compressed. When you take it out, it puffs up. And so you would not be able to insert this again into your bottle. So the best thing to do is to use one of those bubbly savers.
And if you don't have one, plastic wrap?
You could do plastic wrap. Frankly, I've done that before. Plastic wrap around the top with a rubber band. It sounds so trashy, but I promise you it actually works decently. Okay. You might get a little less time saving it that way.
We've got a question. Are you going to continue to have this cheese in the store?
So Briat Savarin is one that we do normally try and carry. What I will say is French cheeses, and this is one of the reasons I was so excited about being able to get all of these cheeses for this class. French cheeses throughout COVID have been like the hardest ones to get. So they've been the ones most affected by export issues. There have been all sorts of like taxation issues and transit issues, and then compound that with COVID, and it's like crazy. So just, yes, we will try and keep some of these in stock, but as much as we can right now, given. So when they actually all arrived, I almost couldn't believe it, especially number 4.
Alrighty, and everyone loves this cheese. I haven't seen
so happy. So
yet, so
it is wonderful. And in addition to my towel that I normally have, I have an extra paper towel because I knew that my knife would be getting super, super, super goopy. So I decided to have a secondary method of wipage. All right, shall we move on to cheese number 2? So excited to share with you all. Yes. Okay, so whereas I'm going to shift my Briat Savarin down to here. So whereas the Briat Savarin was very, very mild and creamy, dreamy, perfect amount of salt, it's like cheese icing. Once we start getting into the last 4 cheeses, we're entering what I like to think of as kind of the traditional funky French mode of cheeses. And so a lot of people think of Brie, which is what this cheese is here, authentic Brie. People will often think of Brie as the American Brie that they get here in the States, which tends to be a little bit plasticky and rubbery in texture, tends to be so mild as to have almost no actual flavor at all. And it tends to have more of a springy texture and less of a gooey texture, typically. So if you look at my piece of Brie, it's so gorgeous. I almost can't believe how perfect that cream line is. Can you see? So let me put this down for 1 second. So this is an authentic Brie. So if you want to pick this piece of cheese up and smell it, right away, you're getting some more intensity from this cheese, which is really, really awesome. It's really yummy. The rind, again, is our soft ripened style. So this is mold growing on the outside. Again, we're going to want to eat this rind. And the cool part about a soft ripened cheese is because it's a living thing, it's actually breaking down the cheese on the inside. And it's making it squishier and squishier. So that's one of the reasons that these cheeses tend to get gooey and stretchy, is because the mold is actually breaking down the cheese on the inside. So the cool thing about that is you develop what is called, can you see this, Libby, if I'm holding this up?
The light is shining on it, so like maybe do it.
Okay,
yeah,
so
perfect.
you all should have a piece just like this, and you should be able to see. It's what's called the cream line. So it's the part of the paste of the cheese that is closest to the rind and most in contact with the little critters living out there. And so what you'll find is that you develop what's called this cream line, which is the gooier part. And then if you move to the center of the cheese, you'll see it starts to get a little bit more cohesive and a little bit firmer in texture toward the center. But as this cheese would continue to age, the squishy bit would become more and more of the cheese, and the firmer bit in the center, excuse me, would become less and less. So this is a cheese called Brie Normandy. And I'm going to show you how beautiful this is. So it comes in this beautiful wood container, which allows air to get into the cheese, which you really, really need for cheeses like this. So cheeses like this, because the exterior is a living thing, if you deprive it of oxygen, it will die. And then your cheese will taste really, really bad. So this is an organic Normandy Brie. Again, it comes in this beautiful wood container.
You can get it
that,
out.
I know, right? That protects it, of course, so that you can actually stack these, because otherwise you would never be able to stack these cheeses, because they would just squish each other to death. So the fact that we're able to put them in these little thin wood boxes means we can actually stack them for transport and for storage, which works really well. And it slides right out. And then the actual cheese is wrapped in kind of a waxy paper that, again, doesn't stick to the cheese. It doesn't suffocate the cheese. But as we open this up, you'll see that it reveals the gorgeous Brie Normandy in the interior here. So this is our beautiful wheel. As you can see, nice and velvety. It's so, so, so pretty. Isn't that gorgeous?
Can I feel?
Yes, you can feel.
2 fingers.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, super, super velvety. So this is Brie Normandy. I'm going to go ahead and set this one aside. Now, a lot of people will, again, refer to Brie very freely as sort of a style, it's a general style of cheese, I guess is a good way to put it. Almost the equivalent of referring to blue cheese, which is a style. And then there are hundreds of different recipes of blue cheese, kinds of blue cheeses, or names of blue cheeses. Brie is one of those that almost went in the opposite direction. So Brie is actually a very specific cheese, and it has a name protection to it. So you can't, even though we refer to Brie as almost any soft ripened cheese, that's not really the case. A true Brie is a name protected thing, and sort of like Brie Normandy or Brie de Meaux or Brie de Melun or Brie de Nangy. Those are Bries that are actually from a specific village in France. And Brie itself, B-R-I-E, is an area in France, in Ile-de-France, which is the region where Paris lives. And that is where this cheese originated. So a lot of people, again, will refer to Brie, but true Brie can only come from a very few number of places, a very limited number of places in specific villages in France. So it's very, very cool. And this is one of them. This is the Brie from Normandy, which we absolutely love. This one is aged for about a month and a half to 2 months and has about 45% butterfat. So significantly less than our Briat Savarin had, for sure. Brie has been around since about the 600s. So it has been around for well over 1,000 years, which is pretty unbelievable. Emperor Charlemagne, when he first tasted Brie in the year 774, it was a good year, 774, he declared, "I have just discovered one of the most delicious things." With an endorsement like that, you're like, hey, Charlemagne probably ate like everything he wanted, and he loved it. So let's go ahead and take a taste of our Brie Normandy here. Libby, would you like a piece of this?
Yes. While we're munching on our snacks, ooh, it's like the perfect amount of Dorito cracker.
Would you like a piece?
Oh, yeah. Hang on, give me 1 second.
Here you go, honey.
Oh,
it's good, right? What questions do we have over there, Liber?
alrighty. We've got
so awesome.
one from just Bobby tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He got the Saint Angel as a replacement.
Oh my gosh, the best thing ever. Please.
So he'll like a little bit of explanation for the.
So Saint Angel is really cool. It's a square shaped cheese. It is a triple cream. It's going to be a slightly bit firmer, more cohesive in texture than the Briat Severin. So the Briat Severin is going to be a little bit more, not runny, but more like an icing-ish texture, a little bit more silky. Whereas the Saint Angel will be a little bit more rich and full in texture. But both are triple cream. They have about the same amount of butter fat. Both have edible rinds. You can't go wrong. The Saint Angel is fabulous.
So Kelly is wondering what cheeses go best with the apple compote.
All of them.
Okay.
You can't go wrong. It's so mild and appley and delicious. It will go beautifully with everything.
Alrighty.
So you taste and mix and match. There's no right way to do it. So what does everyone think of the Brie Normandy?
I haven't gotten many. A lot of people are saying it's pretty good. I haven't gotten as many as the other ones, but we do have a couple more questions.
Oh, Libby or Tesla does not like it. That's okay. You don't have
to
like
it here. I'll eat it.
Just put it right there.
Okay. So. Okay. Jesus. Okay, sorry, that took too long. Jennifer LaRoche is wondering, do you carry different Brie producers or only one?
Of the Brie?
Just Brie producers.
Yes, so we actually have a few different Bries that we carry. One is this we brought in just for the class, the Brie Normandy, but we also have a Brie de Nangy. We have had Brie de Meaux in the past, or Fromage de Meaux, because originally Brie was required to be an unpasteurized cheese, which means it had to be made from unpasteurized milk. But with various, laws in different countries and requirements of pasteurization, for instance, in the United States, if you're going to be having an unpasteurized cheese, it has to be aged for 60 days or more. Well, by the time you age these cheeses for 60 days, they would not be this gooey, stretchy, wonderful texture. They would start to become firmer. And so cheesemakers have started making pasteurized versions of these cheese, or what they call thermized, so very lightly pasteurized, so that they can maintain a lot of those wonderful, mushroomy, fabulous flavors, but they can transport them more easily, and they can also be sold in other countries that might have restrictions on their soft cheeses. So that is why I made reference to, there's a cheese called Brie de Meaux, but Brie de Meaux must be unpasteurized. And so they have a second version, the same producer, called Fromage de Meaux, which is pasteurized so that they can sell it in other countries.
Okay, we've got probably the most important question of the night
hit me.
Here from Elizabeth Johnson.
Hello, Elizabeth. Oh, I cannot wait to hear this question.
Okay, I'm going to read it word for word. With the accompaniments, like the apple compote, is it better to put the compote on the bread first and then the cheese on top of that, or put the cheese on the bread and then the compote on top of the cheese?
It does not matter.
Oh, okay. Well, that was long.
It does not matter. If you have the cheese on top of the compote, you'll get the texture and the flavor of the cheese first, obviously, before you get to the compote. But I wouldn't worry about that. I would do it however your assembly feels good to you. You can do it that way.
I'm getting a lot more of I love this cheese. Don't usually like it.
Ooh, nice.
I don't usually like, other Bries, but this one's very good. We got one that says it actually has a taste. So
it's actually flavorful. Yeah.
we've got one from Monica's Hot Super Spreader event.
Nice.
If we buy this, how quickly should we eat it? How long will it keep?
So something very important to understand about this style of cheese is it is very delicate in general. So once it has been cut from the larger wheel, like I showed you before, it begins to oxidize and break down immediately. And so it will never be as tasty as when it is first cut from that wheel. So your goal when getting a cheese like this is to eat it as quickly as possible. So what I would recommend is get it the day you're going to eat it that day, try not to keep it. Try to get just enough for you to eat all of it. And then when you want more, go and get more from the store. Try not to get huge hunks that you try and keep around for a long time, because time does not do these cheeses any justice. That doesn't mean that if you get a piece, you can't wait a couple days to eat it. It will be fine, but just be aware that the longer you wait, it will get less and less flavorful. So just kind of something to keep in mind.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. And then we got one more, also from Monica's Hot Super Spreader event. She's wondering, cheese says fromage. Does that mean it is pasteurized? Or someone said that it just means cheese in French.
Fromage?
Yes.
Yes, the word fromage just means cheese in French. The word for raw would be cru, C-R-U. So if you saw lait cru, L-A-I-T, which is milk, C-R-U is raw. So your cheese would have to be labeled lait cru to indicate that it was raw milk. Okay. Fromage just means cheese. Okay. So we talked a little bit about Normandy. I'll point out a couple other cool things about that. So Normandy was originally named Normandy by Vikings that settled there in the 8th century.
Do you want me to put the map up?
Yeah, you can go ahead and put the map back up now. That's great.
Let's go.
By the Vikings that settled there in the 8th century, but they were not the first people to settle there. So there's evidence of habitation of the Normandy region to prehistoric times. But the first sort of like big, it's been basically controlled by like everyone, the Celts, the Vikings, the English. It kept going back and forth between the English and the French and the English and the French and the English and the French, and for many, many, many years. So now it is obviously French, but as you can see, it's very, very close to England. The region that we're talking about in Normandy is about 70 miles, like 70 linear miles from the coast of England, which is one of the reasons that during World War II, when the Allies were kicking off their Operation Overlord, which was their attempt to liberate Western Europe from the Germans, that is why they came through Normandy, is because Normandy was so close to England, they could get on their boats and come right across the English Channel. So strategically, it's very easy to get to from England, and it made transport to that area very, very easy. So this is why you had various seafaring people coming in and taking over, but also you would have other people coming from the east of there to take over. So it's a land of great historical turmoil, lots of battles there, lots of fighting for territory, land rights, shore rights, all of that stuff.
All right.
And of course is the famous location for the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from the Germans back in 44, actually. It was 44, yes. So Normandy is also famous for being the home of a town called Giverny, which is where Claude Monet lived and painted many of his beautiful lilies and whatnot. It is also the home of a town called Rouen, which is where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake.
Oh, woo! Fun.
Famous spot. I think I had one other cool thing. Oh, and also Alexandria has a sister city. Don't ask me what a sister city is. It's a thing. Lots of people have them, I suppose. Well, lots of cities have them. And our sister city is Caen in Normandy. Not to be confused with Caen in the south of France. It is Caen in Normandy.
We have a sister in Normandy?
A sister city, not a sister. Oh. You have plenty of sisters living here in Alexandria with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other questions before we move on to cheese number 3, which I'm so excited about? Yes.
We've got from Amy and Ryan. Does pasteurization impact the taste of the cheese?
So pasteurization is a great question, Amy Ryan. So pasteurization is the heating of the milk to a certain temperature in order to kill potentially harmful foodborne pathogens. Unfortunately, not only do the potentially harmful foodborne pathogens get eliminated in the pasteurization process, but if done aggressively, the healthy, wonderful bacteria that give cheese its flavor and its character and its reflection of the land from where it comes, those are also eliminated when we pasteurize. So the answer to that is yes, pasteurizing the milk to make cheese can make your cheese less flavorful and less reflective of the land from where it comes. It can also affect the texture of the cheese and make it a little bit more rubbery. It can kind of break down those delicate membranes in the cheese. So it doesn't do a whole lot of good for the cheese other than, again, eliminating potentially foodborne pathogens. But for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, cheeses were all unpasteurized and with great success. And still to this day, many cheeses are unpasteurized and done very, very well. It's all about keeping a clean factory and handling the cheeses well while we are transporting them and storing them.
Alrighty.
Pickled eyeballs?
Leah Palmom, like that. She said she gave a pretty good example. Sister cities like having a pen pal.
It's like having a pen pal, a sister city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I don't know if that's a good example or not, but
I think it's a great example. Better example than I gave, which is one where I was like, I don't know what that is. So that's good.
That's fair.
All right, so let's move on to our, can I help you, Tesla?
Stanky, stank.
What?
She wants cheese.
Oh, you can have a piece in just a minute. Let me talk about this cheese first. So this, my friends, is the most famous cheese of Normandy, a cheese called Camembert. And if you pick this puppy up and you smell it, it smells like French cheese. It just smells mushroomy and funky and fabulous, as it should. So Camembert should be funky and fabulous. It should not be mild where it doesn't taste like anything. So if you're having a Camembert that tastes too mild, then switch to another Camembert because they should be delicious. So Camembert was invented in the late 1700s by a farmer, a female farmer in Normandy, and was one of the beloved cheeses of Emperor Napoleon, which again, when the emperor approves your cheese, it's like, I don't know,
Heaven.
It's like big deal. So one of the reasons that Camembert is so famous in France and really has come to almost embody French cheese to people within the country and honestly even outside of the country is because during World War I, wheels of Camembert were part of the rations for the French soldiers. So part of their rations were that they would get a wheel of Camembert in their pack, and they must have smelled fabulous, right? But it became therefore so ingrained in French culture that even to this day, Camembert, again, is sort of like, it equals, in a sense, French cheese, which is really cool. Camembert is about 8 ounces, comes in, again, one of our beautiful little sprucey wood boxes, and is wrapped very similarly to our Brie. Oh, this is getting very soft. Try not to like totally crush it as I take it out, but it's wrapped very similarly in this beautiful, delicate, waxy paper. And as we pull this apart, you're going to see, again, this gorgeous, pooftastic, velvety rind that is present on the exterior of this cheese. And you can see it's so funny. It's like actually been imprinted by the wax paper, which is really, really cool. But again, very fluffy, very velvety. Oh, it's so aromatic. It just smells like earth and mushrooms. It's just super, 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 super beautiful. So shall we go ahead and take a taste of our Camembert? All right. Tesla, you can come around. I'll give you the first piece of this. I'm going to try and give you a little bit milder of a piece for this one. So again, if we look at this cheese, we're able to see how gooey this is. Soft ripened cheese, again, just like the others. And you can see the beautiful cream line that extends from the border of the cheese inward. Super, super delicious. Libby, are you ready for a nice healthy piece of this?
I am.
All right.
Alrighty, I think we might have some. Ooh,
I know, right?
Can I get a cracker for this?
Oh, yes. Well, no, but you can have some of the baguette.
Oh, that's what I meant. Something, a little bit of support.
Here, have some baguette.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Let me see. Oh, what is the difference?
Oh, you like this one? Oh, wow, cool. excuse me,
Smooth
stifle a sneeze there. Here.
Okay. What is the difference between Camembert and Brie? This is from Monica's Hot Secrets.
Great question, Monica. Okay, so the difference between Brie and Camembert, to you, the difference between Brie and Camembert is going to be size. So your typical Brie is at least 1 kilo. Okay, so for instance, this piece of Brie Normandy weighs 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds. So it will never be like smaller than this, a true Brie. Sometimes they will be bigger and they will actually weigh 2 kilos. And so if you could picture something that, look, it's just such a delicate cheese. You see how thin that cheese is? Picture it twice as big as this, and to come around much more like this, super, super delicate. You have to be very, very careful when handling it, when cutting it, all that good stuff. So Brie, to the average person, that's going to be what's going to set apart a Brie from a Camembert. Is the size. So Camembert always is going to be this like a 7 to 8 ounce wheel, more like this size. One of the other impacts of that smaller size is that Camembert is going to be more flavorful, more intense, more funky because of the higher rind to cheese ratio than in the Brie. So you're getting more activity from the rind and therefore a more intense cheese experience with a Camembert than with a Brie.
Okay.
I'm
That
gonna take
was-
a taste of this puppy.
That was answering our question.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Okay.
Enthusiasm.
Oh, Tessa's giving some big thumbs up there. I love it. Fantastic, honey.
Okay.
Questions?
You already answered one of them. Hang on, let me see. I heard.
So good with the cider too.
Okay, just a friendly reminder to everyone. Please make sure you are on mute. Thank you. Next.
Okay, can we move on?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me know if
I
there are more
believe so.
questions. Otherwise, we'll pop on to the next one here.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Are any of these natural rinds or are they cultured? Sorry.
They're all cultured rinds. So a natural rind, by definition, is just when the exterior of the cheese essentially dries out and it forms, again, a natural rind, which is just the exterior dried out. They tend to be kind of an earthy color. There are sometimes rinds that you may not want to eat because they're just not giving a whole lot of interesting flavor. They can taste a little bit more just like dried out cheese. That is a natural rind. These are all treated rinds. So when we're making these cheeses, we are intentionally applying mold to the outside to grow there. So that's why these are called soft ripened cheeses or bloomy rinded cheeses, because these rinds are intentionally applied and allowed to grow like that, as opposed to a natural rinded cheese, which would be a little bit different. And then our last cheese is going to be a washed rind. And so you'll learn a little bit about that in a second.
Alrighty. No
All right,
more
so let's move on to our next cheese. And this is a cheese, it's a little bit smaller than our other Camembert. This is a cheese called Camembert au Calvados. And Calvados is a very famous apple brandy that is made in Normandy specifically. And it is made by taking cider and distilling it into a very, very strong liquor. So it's sort of like the eau de vie of Normandy. It's a super, super small size. It's like adorable. It's got this cute little wax sort of label on the top here. And I'm going to open this one up for you. This should look familiar at this point. So we've got our beautiful little wood box, albeit smaller in this case. And we've got the gorgeous, in this case, a double layered tissue, special cheese tissue that will again keep the cheese from suffocating while it is traveling. So this cheese is super, super cool because think of it as a Camembert. So it has the bloomy rind on it, but about halfway through aging, they scrape the extra rind off the outside and soak this cheese for several hours in actual Calvados, in actual apple brandy. And it infuses into the cheese. And then when the rind grows back on it again, it creates this super sort of interesting, like fruity element and much more funky. So if you take a smell of this, it's going to be the funkiest of the four that we have had so far. But again, this is considered a Camembert from Normandy, but soaked in Calvados apple brandy to just
Alrighty.
gild that lily.
Some people are saying this is the best one so far. So for the flavor, tastes like truffles.
Oh my God, it totally tastes like truffles.
Matt Thurston, good taste palette. Got
You
a
have
good
to come
taste
around that side,
palette.
honey. I can't reach you. Are you ready for your bite, liver?
Yes,
I mean,
can.
and this texture is so dreamy and silky and fantastic. Mm,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Oh,
Isn't that good?
it kind of tastes like if you went to the beach and you had a piece of cheese, like what the beach would taste like as a
A lot of
cheese.
people will describe, it's funny you said that, a lot of people will describe Normandy cheeses as being briny, like oysters. Normandy is big for oysters as well, but it's right by the sea, right? So these cheeses, you know, the animals are eating all these grasses that are bathed by the sea, the winds of the sea. And the cheeses are aged in these areas where the sea breeze is blowing. A lot of people will claim a brininess to these cheeses, which is super, super cool.
Ooh.
Love it. All right, what other questions do we have before we move on to one of the most ancient cheeses in all of France?
Oh, okay.
You like this one too? Wow, Tess likes the funky ones. That's cool.
Why does a wait, wait. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that was a joke. No, sorry. Why does a drunk in apple brandy make it taste like mushrooms? So perplexing.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it would make it taste more mushroomy. But I think it also gives it kind of a fruitiness. But I think what it probably does is alters the pH of the cheese significantly enough that it allows other of these enzymes and things to come forth. So it must be a chemical reaction other than just tasting the Calvados itself. It's not necessarily that you eat this and go, oh, I can taste apple brandy. It's more that it resets the pH on that rind and allows the flora to develop a little bit differently.
Okay.
So that's why you might taste those more bold flavors.
A lot of people are saying it's pretty meaty.
Very meaty. That's another thing you will often hear about Camembert. Delicious.
Okay.
All right. Shall we move on to our final cheese of the evening?
Are we ready, everyone?
I think we're ready. So this is a cheese. This is the only one because we didn't have enough of this left for me to bring home a whole piece of it. So I brought home the box at least, but you can kind of recreate in your own imagination what it will look like. This is a cheese called Pont l'Evêque. Pont l'Evêque meaning the Bishop's Bridge in French. And this one is super cute. It's called La Vache Bottée, the booted cow. Because look, the cow's got little green boots on. It kills me. So this is an organic Pont l'Evêque. And as you can see, again, it comes in this wooden box. The cool thing about Pont l'Evêque, if it were actually in this box, is that it is square in shape. And this is why your piece will either be rectangular or square like mine, instead of wedge shaped like the round pieces were. So it's very, very delicate. This one weighs about 1.5 kilos. So that's about, give or take well over 3 pounds. And is just absolutely wonderful. The cool thing about Pont l'Evêque, it is one of the most ancient cheeses in France. It's been made since at least the year 1100. So that's a really long time, over 1,000 years. And that's a continuously made cheese. So like they've been making it that whole time, which is pretty unbelievable. The other cool thing about Pont l'Evêque, this rind is so awesome. It reminds me of snakeskin. Is
nice.
That it has both the bloomy rind a little bit, and it also is what we call a washed rind cheese, which means the rind is washed in salt water as it's aging, and that causes less mold to grow and more of this beautiful kind of peachy colored rind, which is a particular bacteria that is also growing on the outside of that cheese. And that bacteria is going to give it a certain funkiness, a certain tang, and a certain boldness of flavor, which is really wonderful. And Pont l'Evêque is a little bit less gooey than the other cheeses that we've had. It holds its texture just a little bit more than these super gooey camemberts and things.
Ooh, I like that.
You get a little bit of the crunch from the rind, which is really nice.
It's very yogurty.
It does have a tang like yogurt, and it has a really wonderful finish, like a certain kind of a meatiness. Oh, you want it with the bread? There you go.
People are begging for the apple side to be in the store every day, all day.
The what?
The apple paste, capap. What is it called?
The apple compote.
That was close.
Capap.
I don't know.
Yes, I know. Everyone always wants Natasha's goodies to be in the store all the time, and we'll get there. Promise. What other questions do we have so far, honey?
We need more questions, people. Use your brains.
I don't know. Our time is looking good. Don't pressure yourself.
See.
Oh, you like this one too?
Can
Middle?
you make a grilled cheese with this?
Totally. So these cheeses will all melt really, really well. The Briat Savarin is going to really more like liquefy when you heat it. So I'd say that's not really going to be a melter for you. All of these other ones will melt beautifully. So if you were to do this Camembert au Calvados, and you would just bake this in the oven without a cover on it, even you don't have to cover it in phyllo dough or puff pastry. If you just baked it like this at 350 until it got really squashy, you could put jam on top or nuts, or some people like it more savory and they'll do like mustards or chutneys, things like that. So you can't go wrong. So the Camembert au Calvados, both of those will be super, super wonderful when you're cooking with them. So yes, you can make a grilled cheese and it would be super, super flavorful. So sometimes we get, grilled cheeses or sort of brie cooked things where you almost don't taste the brie. All you're really getting is texture. These would maintain some beautiful flavor when you melted it onto a grilled cheese.
Okay, we've got Dave Rebecca says, am I wrong in saying it tastes like a strong Munster?
It will be reminiscent of Munster for sure. So Munster is a very, very famous Belgian cheese, also made in Germany. And it is very strong and funky. So this will be, the Pont l'Evêque will be more reminiscent of that because it is also a washed rind cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, not quite as stinky though.
We've got from Monica's Hot Supper Spreader event. If I want to impress someone on a first date, which cheese do I pick? And going with that, which chocolate would be the best with one cheese?
Which would the chocolate be best with? Is that
yeah, out of all of them.
So I think the chocolate for me is best with the Briat Savarin because it tastes more like almost like a cake icing or something. It's a little bit less meaty and funky. So the chocolate I think offsets it really, really well. If I were picking something for a date, I would go for the Camembert au Calvados. First of all, because it's a great size for two people to enjoy and share. And secondly, it's got kind of a cool story. So not only is it the traditional cheese of Normandy, the Camembert, but it's got that little something special, right? Where it's aged in the traditional cider liqueur or liquor of Normandy as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy. It makes it super, super cool. So I would go for this one. Plus, again, the size is perfect for two people to enjoy and then move on and have the rest of dinner. You're a fan of that one, huh?
Okay. We also have there was one about the cider. Okay. So April and Gary were wondering,
Gary.
can you tell us more about the cider, like the brewer himself?
Yes,
Eric
absolutely.
Bordell.
Yes. So Eric Bordell has a really cool history. So he is the cider maker here, the owner of the property, the farmer of the property. Eric Bordell is a very famous former sommelier of a very famous 3 Michelin star restaurant in Paris called L'Arpège, and was there for a very, very long time and retired from there. And having built his entire career on understanding wine and appreciating wine and explaining wine to people, his family had this cider farm or an apple farm in Normandy. And he thought to himself, I want to apply the experience and understanding that I have of fine wine to cider making, because a lot of those same nuances are there. They both the grapes and the apples benefit from the earth from which they come. They benefit from varieties of the breeds of the grapes or the apples and how they're blended together. It's very important, the age of the vine or the tree. So whereas in winemaking, we have the term like an old vine, which means that the vine, will produce less fruit, but the fruit that it produces will be very concentrated and reflective and fabulous. The apple trees are the same way. So he's got all these ancient apple trees that have been there for hundreds of years that he grows his apples. And then he blends them. So he handles each apple independently, grown, crushed, and fermented totally separately, and then does the blending. So just like fine wine is going to be blended and then will continue to be aged. So it's a really, really cool process that he follows. And again, brought his understanding and appreciation of wine to cider making. And that's why his ciders, this is just one of about 6 that he makes, his ciders are considered to be sort of like the champagne of Normandy.
Nice.
For that reason.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
He's very, very well respected. These are all organic as well, and which is no small thing to do. So it's a really, really neat process, and he makes all of his own ciders from his own apples, which is very cool.
Alrighty, so everyone's talking about how they're very interested in seeing the poll results.
Okay, so let's do our poll. Can you put
So,
up the poll, Liberty?
Alrighty.
So we have a poll up here, as we
Launch.
always do, which is your favorite cheese from tonight. So you should see a list pop up, and you are going to choose your favorite cheese. Is it the Briat Savarin? Is it the Brie Normandy? Is it the Camembert? Is it the Camembert au Calvados? Or is it the Pont l'Evêque? Very excited. Are you seeing votes rolling in?
It was like, it was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, bam!
It's like a frenzy.
Yeah, I was like, holy.
Frenzy.
Okay. Okay, there's one that is far in the lead.
Ooh.
I'm gonna give it like.
Well, based on what people were saying on
couple
the
more
chat, I
seconds.
think I could probably guess what that one was, but I'll be
Alrighty.
interested to see what the results are. Is it starting to
Alright.
slow down yet?
It's slowing down a little. I'm gonna keep it up a
Okay.
little bit longer.
Wonderful. Which was your favorite, Libby?
You can't ask me that.
I can't. Tesla, what was your favorite?
That one that you gave me first.
The one you got very first, the Briat Savarin, the really squishy one? Yeah, it's delicious.
I feel like they're all so good. I can't pick.
You
I
can't
feel
pick?
like
I liked everyone besides.
I didn't like the. Wait. I'd say I didn't like the. Wait, what was the yogurty one again?
That was the last one, the Pont l'Evêque that
Okay.
you said was
I
kind of
wouldn't
yogurty.
say I didn't like the Pont l'Evêque.
Pont l'Evêque.
Pont l'Evêque. Very
Nice, Tess.
really Tesla. Okay, very much because I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of yogurt, but
Okay.
it was pretty good. Like I
Okay.
like them all. Alrighty,
All right, let's post the poll.
Mom, which one do you think won?
I think the Camembert au Calvados,
Which one is that?
but that was based merely on people
Okay.
seeming to think it was really
It
cool
was
in the chat.
not, actually. They only
No.
got 18 out of the 87
What?
votes. It is in second place, but what do you think is in first?
The Briat Savarin?
I'm guessing
It
the first
is.
one.
47 votes.
Jeez,
Mm,
Louise, that's amazing. That was the first one. That was your favorite. Was most people's
So
favorite.
technically 48.
Yes, so 48 technically, yes.
Jennifer LaRoche is interested a Scotch and cheese tasting in the offing.
Yes, absolutely. So we've done a whiskey
Offering,
and cheese
there.
class. I'm trying to remember how long ago that was. It was really, really fun where we had a special whiskey cocktail and we did some really cool whiskey cheeses. So I think we should repeat something like that in the winter for sure. Something nice and cozy.
Okay. Also, we've got so no sulfites in the
Sulfites?
cider. Sulfites in the cider.
Cider
correct.
does have sulfites in it. So
okay.
sulfites occur naturally on grapes and on apples, and they serve as a preservative. So it helps the cider or the wine basically be preserved in the bottle for a longer period of time. So they are a natural thing. Sometimes producers will add additional sulfites as a way to better preserve their wine or cider. And that's just up to the producer of whether they do that. But they all have to put like this disclaimer on there of like has sulfites, but pretty much everything has sulfites because it exists naturally on the skins of grapes.
Okay. One thing, sorry, I forgot to put up the poll before, but I just popped it up now so everyone can see the results.
Oh, nice.
The Waynick family says it was really 49 for the first cheese, but they said the house was divided. So.
The house was divided. Nothing worse than a house divided.
The Deirdre.
Deirdre.
Thank you.
That was really nice.
Deirdre. If you are ever in Western New York,
Yes.
sorry, go visit Star Cider and say hi to at Cortes. You should go there.
Okay, I'll do that for sure. Should we talk about our items online in our next class? Yes. Okay. So normally we do classes every 2 weeks, but 2 weeks from tonight is in fact Thanksgiving. So we will not be doing a class 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to push our next class. So it'll be a little bit further out than the typical 2 weeks. And it will be super fabulous and wonderful. I have not finalized the theme yet, but you can count on it to be pretty awesome. And I will most definitely have this 100-person maximum thing. It's never been a problem before with the classes. For some reason tonight, it created an issue. So I really apologize if anyone hit any glitches logging into the class. And we will, of course, reach out to everyone and give them the link. So within about an hour after the class ends, I will send you an initial link. So for those of you that didn't start watching the class at 6, let's say you're coming back from work and you just want to watch it tonight, you'll have that link tonight. tomorrow morning, I will send out a second link, which will be, edited down so you don't get all the silliness in the beginning with the tech issues. It'll be shortened, and that will be the sort of final official recorded version that you can watch again and again and again at your leisure. All of the items are available online, so you should be good to go. If you go to the website and just click on events and videos and then items from recent classes, all of these items, including the cider, are there. And I will also send you that link in your email tomorrow.
Okay, and then we've got one more question.
Sure.
Kelly is wondering, how should I save what's left over? And I'm saying
Kelly,
just stuff
great question.
it in your mouth.
Right.
But
Libby's advice is sound, which is just stuff it in your mouth. If you are not up for just stuffing it in your mouth, what you want to do is get a lidded container, like either a Tupperware container or a glass lidded container. Do not wrap these cheeses. Just open your lidded container, rest the cheeses inside the container with a little space in between, and secure the lid on top. It will create a nice little ecosystem inside where it will keep your cheeses from getting dried out or too cold in the very dry and icy refrigerator, but it will not suffocate them like would happen if you wrap them in saran wrap, for instance. So again, into a lidded Tupperware container or glass container and seal the lid, pop it right into your refrigerator. And then do remember that next time you go to enjoy them, let them sit out of the refrigerator for about a half hour so they come to room temperature. Especially cheeses like this, you do not want to be eating them cold. You will just not get the flavor or the texture like at all.
Okay. Dave Becky says, send all the leftovers to me if you're too lazy.
Or
to
you
get
can
that
send all the
container.
leftovers to Dave and he will most happily eat them. And he loves the rind as well. So I hope nobody hollowed out their cheese and didn't eat the rind, because that would be sad.
Okay, and then also Dave Becky, he's wondering if next time you could put never mind.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
All right. So I want to thank you all for being here. I apologize again for the weird tech stuff in the beginning. We'll get it sorted out for next time. And I want to extend another thank you to all of our veterans out there, whether currently serving or previously serving. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I hope you take some time this day to appreciate your own contributions. And everyone have a most wonderful day. And those of you that are having birthdays, happy birthday to you. And we'll see you in a few weeks. Watch your email for our next class coming up.
Alrighty.